Good morning, all.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am. Can we wait for 2 minutes till the participants join? Some more. By 10 to, we'll start, ma'am. Good morning, everyone. It is with a great pleasure and enthusiasm that I welcome you all to this 5-day FDP focused on sustainable construction materials, practices, and technologies. Over the past 3 days, we had the privilege of delving deep into various facets of sustainability within the construction industry. As we continue to explore innovative materials that reduce carbon footprint and efficient construction techniques, I would like to invite Dr. Ravikumar H., Head, Department of Civil Engineering, to address today's gathering.
A very good morning to everyone. I extend a very warm welcome to each one of you as educators and professionals. Our role extends beyond mere participation in this program. We are entrusted with the task of inspiring and educating the next generation of architects, engineers, and construction professionals. Together, let us embark on this journey on this session titled Net Zero by our today's resource person, architect Jyoti Gupta from Christ University. I request Assembly Madam to introduce the speaker of the day. I hand over. Madam, please continue.
Thank you, sir. Good morning and a warm welcome to today's session titled Net Zero Sustainable Strategies. It is my privilege to introduce our esteemed speaker, Ms. Jyoti Gupta, Architecture cum Associate Professor. Good morning, ma'am. Welcome you, ma'am. Ms. Jyoti is a multifaceted professional with a wealth of experience spanning over 16 years in the architecture, engineering, and construction industry. Holding the position of Associate Professor at Christ University, she brings a unique blend of expertise as an architect and geospatial data scientist. Her academic journey is marked by notable achievements, including a postgraduate degree in smart cities and urban analytics from the prestigious University College London Center for Advanced Spatial Analysis. This academic pursuit has provided her with a solid platform to develop into simulation models for cities and complexity. Ms. Jyoti's professional trajectory is illustrious. Having contributed significantly to various domains, she has held responsibilities ranging from sales intelligence analyst at Campus Group London, where she served as a single point of contact for Compass CRM uses across 45 countries, to project management responsibilities in renowned companies like L&T Construction, Synergy, NCBS, and Cognizant. Her expertise extends to handling projects for prominent clients such as Tech Mahindra, Flipkart, Mercedes-Benz, TCS, IBM, and ANS, among others. Notably, she has also made significant contributions to the field of smart cities and spatial networks through her numerous presentations and talks at national levels and international forums. Ms. Jyoti's contributions to academia and research are equally commendable. She was pursuing the PhD in VTU as well as in Christ Team to be University in Urban Spatial Data Science and Smart Cities. She has presented over 24 papers on topics related to smart cities and geospatial analytics. Her research endeavors have been recognized globally, including winning awards such as the Global Smart Cities Champion from the World CSR Congress. Furthermore, Ms. Jyoti is actively engaged in knowledge dissemination and industry collaboration. Her engagements include panel discussions, presentations, and talks at esteemed institutions and events worldwide. Notably, among these are the different engagements, and as well as in Oxford University, University College London, and various international conferences and webinars focusing mainly on smart cities technology and sustainability. In recognition of her contributions, she has received several awards, including being awarded by the Best Poster Presentation at the ICTS GA1 conference for her work on modeling spatial patterns of urban growth in Bangalore metropolitan region, India. Today, we are very honored to have Ms. Jyoti Gupta ma'am with us to share insights on net zero sustainable strategies, drawing from a rich experience and expertise in the field. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the wonderful welcome. Thank you, the HOD, Dr. Ravi Kumar. Thank you, Dr. Anita, Dr. Tamisagan, and Dr. Ramya, who have actually invited me to the forum. So thank you so much. Can I go ahead sharing my slide?
Yeah, ma'am, sure.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
can share your screen.
Is it visible full screen?
Yeah, ma'am, it's visible.
Okay, so I have a real opportunity to be part of this 5 days event, and I would like to thank all my other resource persons, starting from IISC to Dr. Jagdish, and then Apurna, and today is my 4th day. So definitely, I understand all the faculty members and all the students who are attending this session will be definitely now fulfilled with sustainability, construction materials, practices, and technologies. So definitely, we are talking on sustainability, which is a key topic for our understanding at our generation in India, specifically in Bangalore. So before getting into net zero, I thought I will start with what is sustainability, why actually we are talking on sustainability, and what is the main part that we all are growing. I would say that sustainability is so pressing key subject these days that not only research but also employment people are appointing people expertise in sustainability. So sustainability talks not only about environment, it talks about the natural resources, it talks about the ecological balance. So if you see this chart, it talks about the people, that is we, it talks about the planet that we all stay in, and it talks about the profit that we gain with sustainability. And I would like to tell you that India is growing. As you all seen, the GDP has tremendously grown each quarter. So with the Indian economy, we expect to grow the sustainability from $3 trillion to $26 trillion by 2047. And with this expected growth of India, where actually we stand. So to give you a brief about India's sustainable journey, it is a unique set of challenges. You know, we have a set of air quality issues in the urban centers, whether we talk about Delhi, we talk about coming to Bangalore, or we talk about the water scarcity that we all are facing right now, and the land degradation. So these are the few things India is facing. And with regard to sustainability, how we can actually take this into the different contexts, that's more important. Now, as a management, if I talk about sustainability, we talk about the society that we all stay in. We all have equal opportunity. We all have social coherence. And then we talk about the environment. Environment is basically we are staying in such a beautiful environment. We have natural resources, but actually, are we preserving it? Because most importantly is in what way are we doing the solar passive orientation? In what way are we doing the thermal insulation using a mud local materials? Are we using checker windows with large courtyards around for natural ventilation? So that why are we doing this? To get a better environment facility, how viable it is. Then we talk about the economy. So I would say economy is a main criteria because as the economy is growing, this is what we all are having a great impact on. Because the economic growth is so very important that how the employment opportunity comes in picture, the technology innovation, and end of the day, the wealth creation that we all talk about. Now, coming back to my main topic, what is net zero? Why am I actually focusing on net zero? Because net zero is the main topic that people talk about. Is it zero emission? Yes, as we rightly said, net zero is talking about zero carbon emission. If you see this plot, you can see that where we stand. We see the blue line which talks about the emissions. Emissions I talk about, it talks about carbon, it talks about greenhouse emission, it talks about the various kinds of emissions that we all face. Why the air quality is having an impact. If you see on the y-axis of the chart, it talks about the carbon dioxide emission. So where are we standing? It's more than 40. These are the current policies. So we are targeting to get into the net zero. So the net zero is wherein it will line up to the x-axis, and the negative energy is like when you go to the minus. Now the minus energy talks about the minus 10 degrees is what we expecting. Minus 10 degrees is having a carbon removal approaches. In what way are we getting this approaches removed? Now we are in 2024. So with 2024, where our plot has grown. So with the 2024, if you see on the x-axis, it is on the peak. We are on the very peak of the carbon emission, and there is a global warming. It's a high level that we all realize that the carbon is, we have in the stage of 1.5 degrees of global warming. And for us to all to survive, to be in a better stage, we need to actually target the net zero. And you can see the net zero is from 40 to 0. It is a major change, and this needs to be gone through a conventional mitigation techniques. We need to ensure, we need to lead more of sustainable integrate. So I've just got a small clip of so that you all understand that what actually I'm talking and how am I connecting it into the different way. Why is it not playing? Just a minute. Okay. So when I talk about the net zero,
UK government has committed to reach net zero by 2050. But what does net zero actually mean? Since the mid-20th century, global emissions of greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide have been rising. These gases trap heat from the sun, which warms the planet. In the UK, we know we need to reduce our emissions to zero to help avoid the worst effects of climate change. We can cut down on our impact a lot, but we can't yet get rid of all the emissions from things we need, like food and industry. So, to compensate, we also need to actively remove greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. Net zero means striking a balance between what we emit and what we remove. It sounds simple, but capturing and storing carbon is not easy, and most of the new technology is currently very expensive or unproven. That's why our emissions need to come down much faster than the current rate. The lower they are, the easier it will be to cancel them out. Carbon capture is certainly not an excuse to carry on burning fossil fuels. Getting to net zero will involve the whole of society, demanding a sustainability effort on the scale of the Industrial Revolution. For the government and businesses, it means eliminating fossil fuels, reducing energy demand, and investing in new technologies and the power of nature. For the public, it means changes to our homes, what we consume, and how we travel. It may sound daunting, but it could actually result in a happier and more healthy society. But some scientists do have concerns about net zero. In the UK, we do not include finance, aviation, or foreign imports in our emissions calculations. If these sectors are not counted in the future, some experts worry we will simply outsource our carbon footprint overseas. Net zero is a necessary and feasible target. If done correctly, it's the radical and decisive action we need to limit warming well below 2 degrees Celsius and protect our planet for future generations.
So, what I would like to tell you is that there is already an agreement in place. So, this agreement was in December 2015, and all the countries are working towards it. And this agreement was on the climate change active by the Paris Agreement. There, they had announced that we all need to actually come up in a stage wherein we understand the net zero emission. We need to create a balance because we need to see how the emissions around the world is being controlled and the greenhouse gases are synced in the half of the century. So that is what net zero emission is. And considering this agreement, how we can cope up, where is India placed? Because now I talk with regard to India, I talk with regard to Bangalore, and how we see our climate change input, that's more important. So what are the key main factors that we need to mitigate? How we need to mitigate each other this climate change? First thing is we need to retire coal plants. So when I talk about retiring coal plants, there are a lot of industry which uses coal plants. We need to ensure that how we can reuse another material or another plant wherein we can avoid the use of coal plants, because coal plants are the major part which impact your greenhouse. It's a major part which impact your air pollution. Second thing is invest on green energy and efficiency. We need to have solar panels, we need to have wind turbines, we need to see how the energy is being reused and it's being utilized. Then we need to retrofit and decarbonize buildings. I would say that we need to use more of green building technology. As civil and architects around us, we need to see how the buildings are decarbonize. We need to raise a red flag in the real estate industry in order to ensure that we go ahead with this kind of green building technology. Then we need to use the materials. So what are the materials we're using for construction? We use cement, we use steel, and we use plastics. And how are we actually decarbonizing these materials? Then majorly we need to shift to electric vehicles. So when I say electric vehicles, I understand there are challenges of electric stations. We need to address that also, but I would definitely recommend that move on to electric vehicles. We can save a lot of energy, we can save a lot of green gases that's been emitted all around us. Increasing public transport, biking and walking. I would say that use of local transportation, use of metros, the biking and walking would be more preferable instead of having your own vehicles, which is more crude oil based. Okay. Then aviation and shipping. If you saw the video, you would have noticed that UK has already initiated net zero initiative, but they have not considered aviation. They have not considered the export and import, because aviation, the flight is emitting lot of carbon dioxide. And how are we actually trying to control it? What is another technology that can be introduced where we can decarbonize this kind of aviation? Then we need to halt deforestation. It means to say that we need to ensure that we stop cutting trees, and we need to not just cut trees and then go ahead building flyovers. If you're cutting that number of trees, we need to deforestation. We need to replant twice the number of trees. So that also needs to be considered. I think there was a study recently from Indian Institute of Science, Dr. Ravichandran, wherein he was talking about how the Bangalore city itself has become a concrete jungle. So that also is actually because a lot of trees are being cut, and that was a major problem for our city to have a situation wherein we don't have rainfall till now, and we are facing a lot of water scarcity. Then the reduce of food loss. I think this is a main important part coming from an institution, educational institution. We need to educate our students. We need to educate the people around us to not to waste food, not to just use plastic, and try to use your own water bottles, and try to use more of reusable material. Then definitely I would say go for more vegetarian. Try to avoid meat and non-vegetarian. So this was a study by WRI, and I would definitely go ahead ahead with this. Earlier to this, I gave a presentation on EHG. So I again met you, I think it's a 1.5 year back, wherein I spoke on EHG. I spoke about the three main aspects at the environment, social, and governance. When I talk about the environment, I talk about the protection of natural resources. I talk about the three main factors about water quality. I talk about carbon footprint. I talk about the natural resources, the waste management, and pollution. Now, when I talk about the social, definitely I talk about what is the Data Protection Act that we are going through, what is the employee diversity, what is the human rights that we all have around us. Then talk about the governments. In what way are the governments supporting us for sustainability? In what way are we actually going ahead with the executive compensation? So then we come up with the main goal of sustainable development goal. If you're all aware, I think till now you all have seen a presentation. There are 17 identified sustainable development goal that is known as SDG. Now this SDG are 17 numbers. In that 17 numbers, where do we stand? Where can our infrastructure, the energy, the sustainable cities, and the climate action takes care? So in this 17 goals, I would say the 17th one, which talks about the partnership for the goals, then it talks about the industrial and innovation of infrastructure. Basically, it talks about the building resistance, promoting inclusiveness, sustainable industrialization, and foster innovation. Then it talks about affordability, clean energy to ensure the accessibility of reliability, sustainability, and modern energy, sustainable cities and communities. How do we make our cities smarter, safer, resilient? That's more important. And then comes the climate action. Climate action we can take ahead. What is the urgency to understand the climate change and the impact of things? So as an architect or a civil engineer, I would say that what are the climate resilience are we taking ahead? How are we making housing affordable? How are we making a green building? And what is the technology or the thermal comfort that is being considered? So these are the few slides which I would be talking about. How are we increasing the water preservation efforts? I would definitely recommend, and now the government also have started mandatory that to install the rainwater harvesting. We are having the RWH installed not only in apartments but also in small houses, in offices, in commercial spaces, so that we can reuse the rainwater. Then we can use the building materials which has curing and also the water effect. We can use the native species in landscaping. Then we talk about the improved environment product market, wherein we use low of VOC content material. So whatever the material we buy, we need to see how important it is with regard to the environment product. We talk about the fly ash. Please go with the local materials. I would suggest not to go with the material which is already existing. So that also is major part. Then wastewater treatment plant, the use of water efficient features, the monitoring and the overflow of water. Then we talked about the power lines. I think energy efficiency is the main part. How are we actually trying to conserve our energy? Then we talk about the accessibility of transportation. How are we encouraging the use of plastics? How are we encouraging the use of vehicles with low emission? Then we talk about the thermal comfort, which leads to the better productivity which has a better inform. Now, when I talk about sustainable cities, I talk about smart cities, I talk about how are we using sustainability. That is a main part of all our study. I would say, first we start with environment, the ability to protect the existing as well as the future quality and the reproductivity of the natural sources is the major part of environment. Now, when I talk about the environment, the major part would be the energy in the environment. And the environment can definitely go ahead with the air quality, the water and sanitation, the noise. I think the noise should be the major concern for all of us. The environment quality goes with various factors about what air are we breathing and what water are we drinking, and in what way or how clean our food is that we get it from the plants, and in what ways the biodiversity being maintained, and what is the energy level are we talking about, in what way the electricity are being concerned with this kind of environment. Then we go ahead with economy. Yes, any questions? Is my slides available? Anita ma'am? Okay, so then we talk about the economy. In what way are we actually generating the income, the employability? What is the infrastructure that we take care? In what way are we going through the urban planning, the urban structure, the building, the infrastructure, the transportation? And finally, we talk about social. We can talk about education, the health, the cultural safety that we go ahead, the housing, the also with regard to the ICT structure. So the main part comes with regard to the sustainable city. Now, a sustainable city can be designed with the architecture around us. It's not only that building that needs to be green. Apart from the green building, we need to also think about the spaces which is around us, whether we are talking about the green roofing, the vertical gardenia, the green walls, the green facades, or the community garden and city farms. Then we talk about the tree planting. When I talk about tree planting, I talk about the city streets. I talk about the parking and the private properties when we talk about the tree planting. Now, the green streets can be pedestrian friendly. It needs to have a strong presence of trees and low planting. It needs to activate commercial and retail spaces. Then we talk about water sensitivity and the urban designing. In what way are we doing the rain gardens, the permeability of pavements? How are the walls constructed in the wetlands? In what way are we using the water reusable material? And how are we managing the urban water cycle? Then comes the urban food. Are we actually using plantation? Are we using the local natural vegetation or the urban food instead of which is not really healthy? So a sustainable city, it needs to be designed in such a way that it needs to be socially, economically, environmentally more urbanized. It needs to be more city oriented. It needs to have an eco-friendly environment for the infrastructure. It needs to have walking lanes and the bike lanes. Now, the main part of our presentation is net zero. So when I talk about net zero, actually, where are we and what are we? We are following, I would say, the key principles of net zero. One thing is we need to keep in mind that how are we measuring and disclosing carbon? Carbon is a really ultimate metric to track. Now, carbon is a main problem for all of us because carbon is impacting our health. And when I talk about that, even the buildings are having an impact of carbon. So because of this carbon emission, we need to create a balance between the carbon with regard to the ultimate metric and with regard to the net zero balance. Second thing is how are we reducing the energy demand? In what way are we understanding the demand or the reduction in the energy? So it's important for us to prioritize. It's important for us to perform the efficiency of energy in order to not wasting energy within us. Then next thing is how do we create a balance for renewable, that is the supply demand with regard to the off-site and on-site balance of renewable energy. Then we talk about regress. How do we talk of the verification, that is the over time, how do we progress with regard to carbon? So if you see this, there is a road, right? This roadmap that shows in 2030 all new buildings must operate to net zero. In 2050, 100% buildings need to be operating as net zero. So this is the target. This is where we see. And this is with regard to the definition of net zero carbon building. So a carbon building is something which is highly energy efficient with the all energy from on-site and off-site for renewable sources. So this has been declared by the World Green Building Council and we need to obey and follow that. Okay. I want you all to concentrate on this slide because if you see this study was done in 2016, I would say 10 years prior to what situation we are facing now. And if you see our city, Bangalore, if you see, we have shrunken the water table. It has been shrunken from 10 to 90 meters in 20 years. And our annual population is growing, but our water table is shrinking. That is why we all are facing this problem of water crisis in Bangalore. Now I talk about countries like Afghanistan. I talk about China. There is also annual growth, and how is the water available per person? What is the ratio that is being maintained? Then we talk about Yemen or we talk about Kenya. Or there is also situation in Argentina and Brazil, wherein the city is losing about 30% of its peak. Then we talk about Turkey, Then we go ahead understanding the Mexico, wherein the groundwater extraction is 3 times higher. Yeah. Now, the next study, we talks about the net zero. Now, the net zero is important for all of us because from the countries to countries, what is the target that's been achieved? So already cities have achieved net zero targets, whether we talk about Madagascar, whether we talk about cities which is already being observed. Now, where are we standing? In India, we have already targeted 2017 for the net zero. And in 2015, most of the Western countries have a target, and China has agreed for 2060. So this is the statistical confirmed data for the net zero, and our country needs to target about 2017 of the data. Then comes ahead the global climate vulnerability. Now, when I talk about the global climate, I talk about how this climate has been analyzed, it's been checked again and again. Now, if you see at very high level and a very low level, where do we actually stand about the vulnerability? And if you see our country is in the high level, the orange color, it has not reached the red color. But if the situation is not being concerned, it's not being taken care, it's not being mitigated, we also will be no time that we will shift our orange color to red color. And you can see in the world, Africa is already suffering. So next would be our country if we don't do a red alert. So what are the major mitigation effects? So I would say the major mitigation effect is in what way are we transmitting energy from the clean and renewable energy sources. Then we talk about the climate change mitigation with regard to the raw materials. I think this is most important because we all need to understand that how are we actually having a good raw materials or climate friendly raw materials available. Next is the waste generation and expanding a waste treatment plant. So this is most important because how are we actually reducing the waste generation and we are expanding the waste treatment. I come back to my earlier say that we need to go ahead with battery operated car. So it needs to be more of electric vehicle and a green mobility needs to be oriented. How are we using the energy efficiency? I think this is most important that we shift into LEDs. We try to have more of climately intensified energy efficiency in all the sector of industry and infrastructure. Then the main part comes R&D. I would say that in our country, research and development is not that it's not that strong compared to other countries. So we need to focus, we need to empower, we need to have more of research and development in climate change. And I would definitely need support from the government so that the government also support our scholars to do research on this kind of climate change and mitigation. So now with this plot, you will understand that how are we bridging the gap. Now it's important for all of us to understand that today, where do we stand? It was about we have 50% renewable energy, and across the nation, how will we become a net zero country? To become a net zero country, we need to achieve the milestones. We need to make more energy friendly material. We need to go into action subsequent milestones, and what do we actually take a bridge on. So there are various investments, consumers, market, digitalization, and how are we achieving. So before I conclude, I would say that these are the few things that we all need to understand. This is the climate action tracker, and if you see where do we see our target of, as I showed you in my first slide, we are at least in the red and orange zone. We have a policy that needs to be targeted. At least in the 20 target, we need to come to the yellow zone. And as per the Paris Agreement, we need to get into 1.5 degrees centigrade. That is the target that for all of us, so that we can avoid global warming. And if it is not observed, I would say that we could be in a situation that we all suffer, and we cannot stay around us. So bridging the gap is most important. In what way I say is net zero is important for all of us, for our greenhouses, and what are we actually observing with this, and what is the real challenge. This is a small thing about where in India we are facing and how are we actually going ahead with this kind of net zero.
India is currently at the risk of becoming an outcast on matters related to climate action. This is because it has not yet committed to a net zero target year. Net zero refers to a state in which the greenhouse gases going into the atmosphere are balanced by their removal out of the atmosphere. It will be achieved when all greenhouse gas emissions released by humans are counterbalanced by removing them from the atmosphere in a process known as carbon removal. First and foremost, human-caused emissions such as those from fossil fuel vehicles and factories should be reduced as close to zero as possible. Any remaining greenhouse gases should then be balanced with an equivalent amount of carbon removal. Reaching net zero emissions is similar to achieving climate neutrality. The Paris Agreement underlines the need for net zero, requiring states to achieve a balance between anthropogenic emissions by sources and removals by sinks of greenhouse gases in the second half of this century. Over 50% of the global economy has already committed to net zero by 2050. China is the world's largest carbon emitter and has announced that a net zero target for 2060. The US, as the second biggest emitter with large historical emissions, returned to the Paris Agreement with an ambitious 2050 net zero plan and said that it will decarbonize its power sector by 2035. The European Union member states have committed themselves to reducing emissions by at least 55% by 2030 over 1990 levels. But the world's third largest emitter, India, has neither announced a net zero year nor has it submitted an updated climate plan to the UN with raised carbon reduction ambition as required by the Paris Agreement every 5 years. It may not have a net zero year yet, but India is working to reduce its emissions aligned with the goal of less than 2 degrees Celsius global temperature rise. As per commitment made in Paris, India has to reduce its carbon intensity to 33% by 2030. Recently, Union Minister R.K. Singh said that the country will exceed this target set for 2030 under the Paris Agreement. In fact, India is the only G20 country whose climate actions are compliant to the Paris Agreement goal of keeping global temperatures from rising beyond 2 degrees Celsius. But it has not favored a binding commitment towards carbon neutrality. It is also not aligned with the more ambitious goal of 1.5 degrees Celsius temperature rise. Among the contentious issues it faces is heavy reliance on coal. According to the International Energy Agency, coal accounts for close to 70% of electricity generation. Cutting greenhouse gases which heat the atmosphere and contribute to climate change involves shifting power production away from coal, greater adoption of renewables, and transforming mobility through electric vehicles.
Later on, I would like to tell you where actually we all are suffering, because I understand that water crisis is the main thing for our city. So the study was from the Indian Institute of Science, and they have compiled a study from Bangalore locality. So if you see the Bangalore map, there were about four valleys in Bangalore, and they were about the lakes that was around Bangalore. Whether we talk about the Hebbal Nagavara, we talk about Koramangala Chalagatta Valley, we talk about Survamukhi Valley, Vishwabhavati Valley, and Akhavati Valley. So if you see, Bangalore has been splitted across this lake network, and the water level for the domestic, like million of liters, is required per day. Now, how are we actually understanding the available water resources? Now, you all know there are three main sources of water for our city. That is TG Halli, then the KSR Reservoir on Kaveri, and then we talk about Kabini Reservoir. Now, when you see all this reservoir and you see about Bangalore, what is the intermediate pumping stations and how are these water treatment plants being used? You see, there is also a major problem on rainfall. Earlier, we used to have ample amount of rainfall, at least in the month of February, March, April. At least we start getting heavy rainfalls. No problem in May, but you as yourself is noticing that we till now 2 months the month has gone completely dry. Now with because of this, the rainfall also has not been showing good progress, and because of that the water balance in Bangalore also is tremendously gone. What is the maximum amount of people they are requiring water, and what is the available water? That is most important. Though the government has come up with rainwater harvesting plant, recycling rainwater, lake rejuvenation, like the BDA is looking into all the lakes, especially lakes like Belandur and Vatur Lake had a major problem. And because of that, about, like for example, the Balandur Lake, 25 cubic meters of slit, 2 lakh taken out and awaiting transportation. So only 2.2 lakh cubic meter is being transported. Then we talk about the Vatur Lake, which is about 12.5 lakh cubic meter of slit and 3 lakh curted. So what is the project? What is the deadline? And what is BDA working for? About 40 to 50% of work is being completed. So now what I would say that we are all in the situation that we are storing buckets of water at home, so that when you go back home you can do normal cooking, you can do the daily amenities for you and your family. But wasn't the situation about 10 years back, I say 20 years back, or when we were also not born, wherein our parents or our ancestors were saying with a lot of water around them because there were lakes, water filled in Bangalore. But now the situation is they're becoming worse. So with this, I would conclude. These are my credentials. I would be happy to be associated with any of you who are doing any research on net zero, carbon emissions, sustainability, or who are doing anything on water crisis in Bangalore. Please feel free to reach me out, and I'll be there with you for you all. So thank you so much. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, ma'am. Participants, any questions are there, you can please post it in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself, and the session is open for question and answer.
Oh, sorry. I'm seeing the chat box now. If you want me to repeat any of my slides, I would be happy to repeat. Maybe I can take up the meter of about how Bangalore has been growing, and also I would also talk about the water content, or the 2 degrees Paris Agreement on net zero. That also I would like to talk about. Thank you, madam.
Thank you, ma'am. I would like to extend a heartfelt thank you to our esteemed resource person who delivered a captivating session on net zero with sustainable strategies during our faculty development program. Your expertise, insights, and passion for sustainability have left a lasting impression on all of us. Your presentation was not only informative but also deeply inspiring. You shed light on the crucial concept of achieving net zero carbon emissions through sustainable strategies, highlighting the importance of integrating renewable energy, energy efficiency, and green building practices into our projects. As educators and professionals, we understand the pivotal role that sustainability plays in shaping the future of our built environment. On behalf of everyone present here today, I extend our sincerest gratitude for your time, expertise, and unwavering commitment to promoting sustainability. Your presence has truly enriched our faculty development program, and we look forward to applying the knowledge gained from your sessions in our future endeavors. Thank you once again for your invaluable contribution. We are deeply honored to have had the opportunity to learn from you. Mama, I think there are a few questions in the box.
Yes, Sudhakar has a question. Yes, Sudhakar. So with regard to how are we achieving this net zero is we need to mitigate it for the industries and we need to remove coal plants. If you see massively from the coal plants and crude oil vehicles, all the emissions has been going. So we need to at least get it to the zero level. And if we don't work on it, trust me, we are in the orange stage. We could reach anytime the red. So we all need to ensure that we have an alternative material for using in the industry and also the vehicles, we need to go for that. So I would say the few mitigation factors that I presented in my slides, we need to go as per that. Thank you.
In
Yeah.
your experience, what are the difficulties that you have faced with respect to the institutions on this net zero solutions?
Okay.
Especially materials, we need a lot of work to do, and lack of equipments and things were there, especially with finance. So, how you overcame that? Can you please share
Sure.
some
Firstly,
light on it?
go ahead with the local materials that you mentioned. I would say definitely that first thing is we need to see a material, the raw material that we are using, it needs to be local and it needs to be sustainable. That is, we need, if you're going for as a civil engineer or an architecture, we usually go for the normal materials for building construction. Now, with that material, what is the strength level? What is the aspects of the design that we are considering and what is the sustainability aspects? Are we using the reusable materials? Try to avoid plastics. I would say plastic is a major problem for all of us because end of the day, whether if we are buying a bottle of water or 10 or 20 rupees, we are actually spoiling the environment by buying the water, drinking and throwing it away. So carry your own water bottles. Try to have more sustainable materials. We are at the stage that the students are coming and joining us and getting educated from us. So first we need to follow the rules and regulations, then only the students who are coming around us will obey and do the same. So I would definitely say that go with sustainable materials, try to use energy vehicles and also use public transportation. Start with that. Small step can lead you in a better way. That is what I would say with my experience. No, it is all the documents. There is a lot of research on that, but I would say that there is a methodology that we all need to follow. Thank you. Okay, with regard to the model and methodology, I would suggest that are you talking about the machine learning models with regard to the groundwater access? The first thing is they are only models which can help you predict the data. They are models which you can actually come up with few analysis of how are we protecting the data and finalizing the groundwater access. But are we actually getting the model into the geospatial? Now when I talk about geospatial, they are geospatial auto correlation models. I have published papers on that. I have done a study on Bangalore. I would suggest that you go through my papers and see how have I actually taken GIS modeling and gone ahead predicting these districts of Bangalore and seen that where are the problems that's been observed. Okay. Thank you. Can you name few tests to conduct on sustainable material? I'm not saying to do some particular test, We need to see a material which is more sustainable. Now, material, I would say go with the local material. There are materials like bamboo, there are materials like mud, which is more sustainable. I know the strength level, this testing won't be as equivalent to what are you looking for, but at least we can go ahead with that. I would give an example of the Ayodhya temple that it was constructed. If you all know Ayodhya temple, Ram Mandir that we say in northern India is being constructed without cement. It is being constructed only with the hollow blocks with the help of a tongue and groove joint, and and the foundation is being laid and it's being located. I would say that please go through that study where the sustainable material was used for building that huge temple of Ayodhya. So that also is a very good example for you to go through that kind of sustainable material. Okay, thank you, Gauri. I think it's fine. Dr. Ashwini, what is the one that would be taken to meet the water demand? Well, thank you for your question. Like we all are suffering, indeed, because of this water scarcity. My university also have rescheduled the classes, and we are, having our semester is closing little early, and we are trying to come. We are trying to avoid the summer because the summer they say is not yet come, and we are trying to see how are we actually going through the water demand in Bangalore. I would definitely say that try to use more of STP water. Try to use the reusable water for the needs that you actually don't. Definitely for drinking, I'm not saying that. Drinking is definitely Kaveri or the mineral water that we use, or the AquaGuard water. So try to use a reusable water. And also I would say there is festivals lined up, like we have a festival like Holi, and the East Good Friday is lined up, and after that we have festivals in April that's coming up, Ugadi, and a couple of other festivals. I would say that try to limit the celebration only to yourself instead of exploiting and using the water, just playing around with the natural water in place of Holi. And we just imagine that we are saving water, but there are people in places like Whitefield wherein they are not getting water on their daily service. They are going to the other places to use for their toilets and the other services. So I would just say that be little human, be sensitive to the situation that we all are facing, and try to use it in the best way you can. I mean, celebration should be limited to yourself. Don't celebrate and use the Kaveri water for the Holi and just spoil it. And we don't have water, frankly speaking. Thank you, Dr. Ashwini. Shraddha, can we take all the alternative as sustainable material, or do we categorize them? Yes, I would say that you need to categorize them on usage. Like now I gave you an example of Ayodhya temple, right? Ayodhya temple is a good example, but just imagine, can you build a Burj Khalifa without using concrete? No, right? There are some advantages and disadvantages. So we need to be mindful about the material that we use with the requirement. Like if there is a number of floors, now with the number of floors, we cannot go away. There is no other material as good as concrete for sustainable strength. As you all are civil engineers, you will know how strengthful material is concrete. But yes, there are other disadvantages also with that. That's why we go with the local materials. But in situations that we go with materials, we need to be a little careful. Okay, so I think, Shraddha, we need to be mindful about how are we using the material based on the requirement of the study. Okay, thank you, Shraddha. Sudhakar, if we do segregate material, we cannot achieve the strength. Yeah. I completely agree, sir. We cannot segregate the material. What I'm saying is try to use maximum local materials as possible. Because in places where we can use bamboo, we can use the local material. Why don't we try? Why do we use steel and try to make the place more modern instead of not using the local? Because earlier we used to say modernism was in place, but now I would say we need to be sustainable. So try to, with your experience, with your knowledge on strength, I would definitely say use sustainable material. Yeah. Thank you, Sudhakar.
Thank you, ma'am, for taking out your time and answering all the questions. It was an interactive session, and it was a real pleasure having you here, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, everyone. Please be in touch with me if you have further any question. I would love to get back to you, and I would love to share my whatever knowledge I have gained till now. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. I think we can log out.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am.